The grease-stained envelope sat unopened on Colonel Maurice Dean's desk at the Royal Arsenal, Woolwich, the 12th of December 1940. Outside his window, smoke from last night's Luftwaffe raid hung over London like a funeral shroud. Dean, exhausted from another sleepless night in the shelters, almost swept the envelope into his waste bin with the other crackpot proposals. But something made him pause the sender's address. The Royal Small Arms Factory, Enfield. He opened it. Inside was a drawing so crude it looked sketched by a schoolboy, tubes and springs. A plumber's nightmare that supposedly constituted a submachine gun. The note was brief. Can be made for under £2. Can be produced by any mechanic with basic tools. H. Turpin. Dean stared. £2? The Thompsons they were buying from America when they could get them cost £40 sterling. Half the last shipment lay at the bottom of the Atlantic. He picked up his telephone. Get me Major Shepherd, and this Turpin fellow. Now. Harold Turpin didn't look like a man about to change history. 47 years old, worn tweed jacket, calloused hands. Born in Kent in 1893, he'd been a draftsman at Enfield since 1922, quietly designing rifle parts while writing articles about model engineering for hobbyist magazines. His colleagues knew him as the quiet one who worked late and never sought recognition. But December 1940 wasn't normal times. Britain stood alone. 11,000 machine guns abandoned at Dunkirk, the Home Guard drilling with broomsticks. Some units armed with medieval pikes welded in village blacksmith shops. Churchill's speeches were magnificent, but Turpin understood the mathematics. You couldn't fight panzers with determination alone. Show them, Major Shepherd said quietly. Turpin pulled his prototype from a canvas bag. The officers recoiled. It was hideous tubes welded at right angles, a coat hanger stock, a magazine jutting sideways like a broken arm. He'd built it in 36 days, working nights in his home workshop and at the Philco Radio Works, where they normally made wireless sets. Gentlemen, Turpin's voice was barely a whisper. 47 parts. Only 2 need machining the bolt and barrel. Everything else can be stamped from sheet metal. A bicycle shop could make most of it. Air Vice Marshal Tedder picked it up, disgusted. It looks like plumbing supplies. Yes, sir. That's the point. Silence. General Alan Brooke finally spoke. Our soldiers deserve better than pipe dreams, Mr. Turpin. Turpin's jaw tightened his only tell. Your soldiers deserve weapons that exist, General. Your proper weapons are at the bottom of the channel or sitting in American factories. He pulled out his notebook, pages covered with calculations. 1 Thompson, 21 hours of skilled machining. Over 100 parts. We can produce maybe 500 monthly. He flipped the page. This 5.5 hours. Same factory that makes 500 Thompsons could make 2,000 of these. The math hung in the air. Brooke's face darkened. It's still ugly. The Germans won't care how it looks when it's killing them, sir. The 8th of January 1941. A muddy field outside London. Rain coming down in sheets, turning the range into a quagmire. Perfect, Turpin thought. If it works here, it works anywhere. Lieutenant Colonel Freddie Morgan of the Commandos picked up the weapon with obvious distaste. He'd used everything from captured MP-42s to Thompsons in Norwegian raids. This looked like a joke. He fired. The burst tore through the target at 50 yards. Another burst. Dead accurate. He switched to semi-automatic. 5 rounds, bullseye. Rate of fire? 550 rounds per minute. Range? 100 yards, aimed fire. It's for close combat street fighting, room clearing. Morgan fired again, then dropped the weapon in the mud. Picked it up. Didn't clean it. Fired. Perfect. He slammed the stock against a tree. Fired again. Still perfect. Cost? Under £2, about $10 American. Morgan stared. A Thompson cost $200 in 1939, 70 at wartime prices. You're certain? Yes, sir. By the 7th of March 1941, it was official. Carbine, machine, Sten, Mark I, 100,000 ordered. The name came from bureaucracy. Someone needed a designation. S for Shepherd, T for Turpin, EN for Enfield. Or England, nobody was quite sure. Sten. All the poetry of a filing system. Walter Lines ran a toy company. Since 1919, Lines Brothers had made colourful trucks and dollhouses under the Triang brand, Three Lines Brothers, three sides of a triangle. Their Merton factories smelled of paint and fresh-cut wood, filled with the cheerful chaos of childhood dreams. Early 1942, Lines stood before skeptical officers with something that made Turpin's design look sophisticated. He'd taken the Mark II Sten and stripped it to its bones. Pure function, no form. You want production speed? Lines spread his blueprints. I'll give you democratic production. My toy factories use spot welding and pressing. So do companies making pots, pans, filing cabinets. They can't make traditional guns, but they can make this. General McNaughton leaned forward. You're suggesting we make weapons like toys? I'm suggesting we make them any way we can. The Germans produce thousands of submachine guns monthly. We produce hundreds. Wait for perfection. We'll be speaking German by Christmas. The room erupted. Weapons in toy factories? Housewives assembling submachine guns. Major General Percy Hobart stood. We're arming the Home Guard with gas pipes and bayonets. Mr. Lines offers real weapons. I don't care if they're made in toy factories or sewage plants, as long as they work. Churchill's response was characteristic. This may not be the weapon we want, but it's the weapon we can have. Produce it. Rose Whittaker had never held a gun before spring 1942. 6 months earlier, she'd painted toy and trains in cheerful reds and greens at Lines Brothers. Now she spot-welded Sten receivers at the same bench. 15 seconds for the main weld, Mr. Jenkins called out. He'd made rocking horses before the war. Now he supervised 200 guns per shift. These aren't toys, ladies. Lives depend on every weld. Rose knew. Her husband was with the 8th Army in North Africa. Every gun might save someone's husband, son, brother. The transformation was surreal. Where wooden blocks once travelled the assembly line, steel tubes moved. Toy car presses now stamped trigger guards. The paint shop reeked of gun oil instead of bright enamels. Across Britain, the impossible was happening. Bathroom fixture companies made barrels. Bed frame manufacturers produced stocks. In Shepherd's Bush, Tom Fletcher's bicycle repair shop made trigger mechanisms. Like a complicated derailleur, he told his wife. Except it changes history. The Sten's trigger had 2 moving parts. 2. The Thompson had dozens. April 1942. Lines Brothers produced 12,000 guns. By May, 2,000 daily. The toy factory was outproducing traditional arms manufacturers 50-1. Captain James Morrison, Black Watch, North Africa. His quartermaster handed him a crate. What the hell is this? Sten guns, sir. From England. Morrison picked one up. After the elegant Thompson and the beautiful Lee Enfield, this was insulting. Looks like plumbing supplies. The lads call them the Plumber's Delight, sir. Also, the Woolworth Special and the Stench gun. 3 days later, clearing a village near Tobruk. Close quarters. German paratroopers in the buildings. Private Hayes faced a German with an MP-40. Both fired. The German's precision-engineered weapon jammed after 3 rounds desert sand in the tight tolerances. Hayes' ugly Sten kept firing. The German died trying to clear his jam. Morrison found Hayes afterward, cleaning his Sten almost lovingly. Still think it's junk, Private? Hayes grinned. It's not pretty, sir, but when it counts. Warsaw 1942, a basement workshop. Polish Home Army engineers studied a single airdropped Sten. 2 weeks later, they were making copies from bed frames and car parts. The genius was you didn't need exact replication. Follow basic principles. The gun worked. Stanisław Jankowski recalled, the Germans had detection equipment for radios, printing presses. But Sten making, too simple to detect. A dentist's drill for the barrel, locksmith tools for the bolt, sofa springs for the mechanism. The French resistance received 400,000 Stens by airdrop. They also made their own. In the Vercors, fighters built them in a cave using a water wheel-powered lathe smuggled up piece by piece. Jean-Paul Mercier. The German weapons were art, but they needed proper factories. We made Stens in barns with stolen railway steel. Ugly? Yes. Effective? Also yes. The Germans, ironically, became admirers. Capturing thousands of Stens, They were so impressed they created their own copy, the MP-3008. As Allied bombing destroyed their precision factories, they learned Britain's lesson too late. A captured German report. The British Sten represents a philosophy we failed to understand. We believed weapons should be perfect. They believed weapons should exist. The 19th of August 1942, Dieppe. Canadian forces armed with Stens discovered the weapon's quirks. Lieutenant Pierre Dubois' Sten jammed open, firing uncontrollably. He threw it into a German position where it spun like a Catherine wheel, spraying death until empty. 3 Germans dead. Completely unintended, Dubois said later. Completely effective. Le 6 juin 1944. D-Day. Thousands of paratroopers dropped into Normandy carrying Stens. Sergeant Michael O'Brien, 6th Airborne, landed tangled in a tree near Pegasus Bridge. Hanging 15 feet up, he heard Germans approaching. The Sten strapped to his chest saved 2 lives that night, his and another paratroopers who'd broken his leg on landing. A Thompson would have been too heavy, O'Brien said. Too awkward. The Sten was ugly, but it was there. By late 1944, production reached its apex. 600 companies making Sten parts, bicycle shops, furniture factories, toy makers. The weapon designed in a home workshop had become democracy's answer to fascism, crude but ubiquitous. American observer Colonel James Worthington wrote Washington, "The British have democratized weapons production. Our Ordnance Department would reject this gun instantly, but they're producing them so fast they're giving them away to anyone who'll fight Germans." Soviet delegations came to study the miracle. Their PPH-41 was simple, but not this simple. They watched housewives and retired shopkeepers assembling weapons, taking notes, marveling. Walter Lines gave tours. "We didn't turn toy makers into gunsmiths. We turned gunmaking into something toy makers could do." 1945. Allied forces pushing into Germany discovered the ultimate irony. The Germans, masters of precision engineering, were copying the ugly British Sten. Their factories, pulverized by bombing, could no longer produce the beautiful MP-40. The student had become the teacher. Final tally. 4.5 million Sten guns produced. Lines brothers alone, 876,794. From a sketch on scrap paper to one of history's most produced firearms. The mathematics were staggering. Traditional methods would have required 84 million man-hours for 4 million guns. The Sten took 20 million. Those saved 64 million hours, 32,000 workers for a full year, went to building planes, tanks, ships. Cost savings, £50 million sterling. But the real saving was Britain itself. Harold Turpin never sought glory. After the war, he returned to Enfield, designing sporting rifles, writing about model engineering. He retired in 1953, died April 1967, aged 74. His Times obituary. 3 lines. Major Reginald Shepherd, who championed the ugly gun when everyone mocked it, received the OBE in January 1942. Dead by 1950, aged 58, his health broken by war stress. At his funeral, a Canadian veteran placed a Sten on his coffin. Walter Lines went back to making toys. Within a year, the assembly lines that had produced death were again producing tiny painted trains. Lines brothers grew into a toy empire before bankruptcy claimed them in 1971. Veterans would visit the factory, standing where they'd assembled Stens, remembering. The Sten lived on. Korea, Malaya, Suez. The weapon that saved the empire became a tool of its dissolution. Independence movements turned it against its creators. Vietnam. American Special Forces preferred the silent Sten Mark IIs for certain operations. The gun rejected in 1940, still killing in 1965. 2010, Afghanistan. American forces found Stens in a weapons cache. 70 years old. Still functional. Imperial War Museum, London. A Sten Mark III in a display case. The placard. Manufactured by Lines Brothers Limited. Triang Toys. Merton, 1943. Beside it, a Triang toy truck from 1938, painted red and green. Rose Whitaker, 93, visiting with her great-granddaughter. She stopped at the display, placed her hand on the glass. "Did you know about this gun, Nan?" Rose smiled. I made 1,500 of them. She turned to leave, looked back once more. Your great-grandfather carried one in Africa.